So Simple tutorial.
Good morning students, welcome to SST So Simple tutorial. This is Vijay Singh, your social science teacher for grade 10. Today we are going to do one short revision of the lesson power sharing. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do it now. It motivates us to make more videos for you. So let us start. With the help of two stories, this lesson tries to explain how democracies fulfill the demands of power sharing. This is Belgium, a small country in Europe. To the south of Belgium, we can see France. Here we have Luxembourg, then Germany, and then to its north you will find the Netherlands. That means it has borders with the Netherlands, Germany, Luxembourg, and France. Its population is little more than a crore. We will now see the ethnic composition of Belgium. The northern part of Belgium, shown in yellow, is called the Flemish region, and the southern part, which is given in red, is called the Wallonia region. Of the total population, 59% live in the Flemish region and speak Dutch. 40% live in the Wallonia region and speak French. The remaining 1% see this shaded region in the east speak German. The capital of Belgium is Brussels. In Brussels, 80% of people speak French, while 20% speak Dutch. Thus, Dutch-speaking people are majority in the country but minority in the capital, and French-speaking people are minority in the country but majority in the capital. This is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka lies to the south of India in the Indian Ocean. Its population is about 2 crores, which means almost the same as Haryana. The social groups comprise of Sinhala speakers, who comprise 74% of the total population, and Tamil speakers, who comprise 18% of the population. Among Tamils, there are again two groups, Sri Lankan Tamils and the Indian Tamils. Sri Lankan Tamils are those who are the original inhabitants of Sri Lanka. They comprise 13% of the population, and you can see that they are concentrated in the north and east of the country. Indian Tamils are those whose forefathers had gone to Sri Lanka during the colonial period. Why? To work in the plantations, and thereafter they settled there. They comprise the remaining 5% of the Tamil population. Most of the Sinhala speaking people are Buddhist, while most of the Tamils are Hindus or Muslims. There are about 7% Christians who are both Tamils and Sinhala. I think the composition of both the countries are clear to all. Let us come back to Belgium. What is the problem in Belgium? The minority French-speaking people were rich and powerful. This was resented by the Dutch-speaking people, who got the benefit of economic development and education much later, and this led to the tension between both the communities during the 50s and 60s. By virtue of their number, the Dutch community could take advantage and force its will on the French and German speaking people, which could push the conflict among communities further. But this did not happen. In Sri Lanka, the Sinhala had even bigger majority. So let us see how this community behaved with the minority community in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka got its independence from the British in 1948. The leaders of Sinhala community wanted to secure dominance over government by virtue of their majority. As a result, the democratically elected governments adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy. In 1956, an act was passed by the Parliament of Ceylon. This act is commonly referred to as Sinhala Only Act. What happened by this act? By this act, the government followed preferential policies that favored Sinhala applicants for university positions or government jobs. That means during the admissions in colleges and universities, Sinhalas were to be given preference. In the case of government jobs too, Sinhalas were to be given priority. The new constitution also prescribed that the state shall protect and promote Buddhism. Now, can you compare this case with India? Even though India had to part away with a part of their land for the minority, yet the constitution makers made our country secular. Reservation policy was adopted, but not on the basis of language or religion. Not only this, none of the language was established as official language. The Tamils did not like these measures taken by the government. They saw it as an attempt by the linguistic majority to oppress and assert dominance on minorities. This gradually increased the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. They felt that none of the major political parties led by the Buddhist Sinhala leaders were sensitive to their language and culture. They felt that the constitution and government policies denied them equal political rights, discriminated against them in getting jobs and opportunities, and ignored their interests. As a result, the relations between both the communities strained over time. The Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties and struggled for the recognition of Tamil as an official language. They struggled for regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. But the demands for more autonomy to provinces populated by the Tamils were repeatedly denied. By 1980s, several political organizations were formed demanding an independent Tamil Eelam. In Tamil, Eelam means state. In the northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka, one such militant organization called LTTE was founded in 1976. Its aim was to secure an independent state of Tamil Eelam in response to the state policy towards Tamil. Its leader was Velupalli Prabhakaran, and he headed this organization until his death in 2009. The distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflict, and it soon turned into a civil war. As a result of this civil war, thousands of people of both the communities have been killed. Many families were forced to leave the country as refugees, and many more lost their livelihoods. The civil war caused a terrible setback to the social, cultural, and economic life of Sri Lanka. Now, how did Belgium handle this issue? Unlike Sri Lanka, the Belgian leaders took a different path. They recognized the existence of regional differences and cultural diversities. Between 1970 and 1993, they amended their constitution 4 times so as to work out an arrangement that could enable everyone to live together within the same country. They wanted to accommodate everyone living in Belgium. They did not want to leave any. The arrangement they worked out is very different and innovative. Let us see. First, the constitution prescribes that the number of Dutch and French speaking ministers shall be equal in the central government. But if you go by the number, then the Dutch were supposed to get more because they are numerically more in population. Okay. If some special laws were to be made, they would require the support of the majority of the members from each linguistic group. Thus, no single community could make decisions unilaterally. Many powers of the central government had been given to the state government of the two regions of the country. The state governments were no more subordinate to the central government. Now, the central government was required to share some power with the regional governments. This shows that Belgium had a unitary form of government, and now they shifted to the federal form of government. Next, Brussels had a separate government in which both the communities had equal representation. See the beauty of power sharing here. The French-speaking people, although 80% in Brussels, accepted equal representation in Brussels because the Dutch-speaking people had accepted equal representation in the central government. Apart from the central government and the state government, there is a third kind of government. This is called community government. This is elected by the people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French and German speaking, no matter where they live. The government has the power regarding cultural, educational and language related issues. This Belgian model looks very complicated, but these arrangements have worked well so far there. There has been no civil strife between the two major communities. It has also helped to avoid the possible division of country on linguistic lines. Having read these two stories, what do we learn? Both are democracies, yet they dealt with the situation of power sharing differently. In Belgium, the leaders realized that the unity of the country is possible only by respecting the feelings and interests of different communities and regions. So, respecting the feelings and respecting the interests of all communities is important. The Sri Lankan case shows that if the majority community wants to force its dominance over others and refuses to share power, it can undermine the unity of the country. So it depends on us whether we want a peaceful country in one piece or we want its disintegration. The next topic is why power sharing is desirable. There are two sets of reasons which are given in favor of power sharing. One is called prudential reasons and the other is called moral reasons. Prudence means something that is based on careful calculations of gains and losses. Let us see what prudential reasons are. Firstly, power sharing is good because it helps to reduce the possibility of conflict between social groups. Since social conflicts often leads to violence and political instability, hence power sharing is a good way to ensure stability of the political order. Think of a society where there is fighting, riots, killings, firing and bombing very frequently. How can be peace there? If there is no peace, how will the society prosper and how will the nation develop? Thus, giving every community their due share will definitely save us from this situation. Secondly, imposing the will of the majority community over others may look like an attractive option in a short run, but in a long run, it undermines the unity of the nation. We have just read this happening in Sri Lanka. Thirdly, tyranny of the majority is not just oppressive for the minority, it often brings ruin to the majority as well. Losses of life and property incur from both the sides. Contrary to prudential reasons, certain decisions are purely based on moral considerations. These are called moral reasons. According to the moral reasons, power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. That means if there is no power sharing, there is no democracy. Just like the universal adult franchise or free and fair elections, it is an essential part of democracy. It is embedded in it. A democratic rule involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and who has to live with its effects. After all, democracy is for the people, by the people, and of the people. Therefore, people have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. One thing is sure that power sharing is desirable. You give prudential reasons or the moral reasons. Each of them have their own sets of arguments. While prudential reasons stress that power sharing will bring out better outcomes, moral reasons emphasize the act of power sharing as valuable. Students, in a democratic system, we find that people rule themselves through institutions. But in a good democratic system, due respect is given to the diverse groups and views that exist in society. Everyone has a voice in the shaping of public policies. Therefore, it follows that in a democracy, political power should be distributed among as many citizens as possible. So let us see what different forms of power sharing arrangements take place in modern democracies. First, power is shared among different organs of the government, such as the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Since all these three organs are placed at the same level, we call them horizontal distribution of power. Such a separation ensures that none of the organs exercise unlimited power. Each organ checks the other. That is why this arrangement is called the system of checks and balances. This results in the balancing of power among various institutions. Let us now see the second form of power sharing. Power may be shared at different levels. In this type, there is a general government for the entire country and the governments at provincial or regional levels. The general government for the entire country is called the federal government. In India, we call them central government or union government. The provincial or the regional governments is called the state governments in India. In all such countries where there are two or more levels, the constitution clearly lays down the powers of the different levels of government. This is also called the federal division of power. Since the division of power involves power sharing at different levels of the government. It is called the vertical division of power. Third, power may be shared among different social groups. Community government in Belgium is a very good example of this type. In some countries like ours, there are special arrangements for the weaker section or women in legislatures or administration. Recall the system of reserved constituencies in assemblies and the parliament that we read in class 9. This type of government is meant to give space in the government and the administration to those diverse groups who otherwise would feel alienated from the government. This method is used to give minorities a fair share of power. Fourth, power is shared among different political parties, pressure groups, and movements. Students, democracies provide the citizen a choice to choose their representatives. Such a choice is provided by various political parties who contest elections to win them. Such a competition ensures that power does not remain in one hand and is shared among different political parties having different ideologies. Sometimes parties make alliances and contest elections. If their alliance is elected, they form a coalition government and thus share power. Also, we find interest groups like traders, businessmen, industries, farmers, etc. They also have a share in the governmental power through participation in governmental committees or bringing influence on the decision making process. This brings us to the end of revision. I hope this must have benefited you. In the next class, we will discuss some other topic. Till then, enjoy reading and stay connected. Thank you.